Gut, meine Damen und Herren, ich freue mich sehr, dass Sie alle da sind.
Уважаеми дами и господа, много се радвам да ви видя всички тук.
Jetzt ist ja schon ein paar Tage hier Ulay da mit seinen Kuratoren und Begleitern.
Вече няколко дни Улай е тук в България, придружен от кураторите.
Und die Ausstellung heißt I Other oder As.
Изложбата се казва I Other или Аз другият.
Und ich kenne bis jetzt dich seit ein Tag. Ich kenne nur einen von den zwei As, Drugiert.
Вас или теб познавам само от 3 дни и знам само едно негово аз.
Und heute haben wir die Gelegenheit, eine weitere Seite von Ihnen, von dir und von dem Konzept, von der Ausstellung kennenzulernen.
Днес имаме възможността да видим още една страна от теб или от вас, или от Улай.
Und ich begrüße die beiden Kurator Alenka und Teoš, Alenka Grigoric und Teoš Noga.
Искам да поздравя двамата куратори, Аленка и Теош.
Und wünsche Ihnen einen schönen Abend. Wenn es zu heiß wird, dann schalten wir immer wieder die Klimaanlage an.
И пожелавам хубава вечер, ако стане много горещо, ще пуснем климатични инсталации.
Hello. Hello, welcome everybody. Thank you for coming to talk with Ulay. Thank you for hosting us, and thank you to Business Foundation, to Gapi and Ivan who invited us and are hosting us with your beautiful city. As you see behind us, there are photos of the exhibition which opened yesterday, and actually the whole talk will be constructed around the show. Ulay is a good narrator. He has a lot of stories to tell us, and we decided that we will focus on a few points from the exhibition that we think will enlighten when you will see the show your knowledge about certain things like photography, Polaroid, performance, the things that Ulay was using or was practicing during his rich artistic career. So Teoš and me will ask some questions, and I hope that you will also have questions to ask, maybe at the end, maybe in the middle, it's up to you to decide. So I will start immediately with, we have it behind right now. That's the works from 70s that we included in the show. There are Polaroids. It's of course a small selection, because the show, which was done for Ljubljana City Gallery, and then Ivan saw it there and invited us to come here. It's also not really big space, so we had to do selection within the enormous archive that Ulay has. It was a pleasure to go through his works, to research with him, to speak to him, and then somehow make a decision what to show to public. So these Polaroids that we are showing are part of the performative photography that Ulay did. And actually what we would like to hear now, it's like how you came, when you moved to Amsterdam, when you came there late 60s, how the using Polaroid and starting to working for Polaroid company changed your artistic life, yeah?
Okay, thank you, Alenka, for a brief introduction. And I don't have eyes on my back, and I will not turn all the time around to figure out what is there, so you maybe already say what is there. You see, Alenka, Gregor, and Theo Loga were the curatoren. Later on, we had this great, amazing couple here, Ivan and Kati. They did an amazing job, because to get to conclude or establish something in this wonderful city, and I'm really charmingly amazed about Sofia. I never been here before. Looks good to me. It looks like the ideal city for pioneering, and that's the best part you maybe can experience in life. In 10-20 years, everything is done. Capitalist, shopping malls, food chains, fashion chains, car saloons, and that's it, that's the end. And like airports are, right? And later on museums will be appointments. You know, these two curators here now, sitting left and right from me, they were in a way very courageous, because going through my archive on Earth is like an archaeology through photography. And I mean, it's a great term, I think, archaeology in photography, because my oeuvre from, let's say, from 1970 till present is very diverse and very bizarre in me. Because I never decided to become a signature artist. That means once your signature, regardless which medium, photography or painting or sculpture or installation, whatever it is, but once your signature is recognized and prized, then most artists tend to stick to this signature. And it's easy to recognize it, but it's easy to want it. So I never did this because I have a flirt with visual ideas. And okay, I started at the beginning. In 1968, I left Germany because I found it not anymore acceptable. You know, being born in 1943 in Germany during an air raid in a bomb shelter, and then going through the post-war dilemma, demoralized little society. Actually, only women were left. Men were just sacrificed, either here or there, or last in Stalingrad. The moral level, the psychology, emotions were so terrible, and most unlike an ideal climate, mental climate, for sure. Well, I went through it, and once, you know, I managed to get through the post-war trauma, then I got to do with the Cold War. Some of you remember that. And then, you know, during the Cold War, there was a Vietnam War. Of course, it was mainly for the concern of American, you know, more hippies or more engaged people. But I went all over to Europe to be solidary to the American resistance towards Vietnam. So, well, that's a little bit the collective mindedness of this time. And then, of course, you got in the late 60s, 70s, you got the European terrorist groups like Parliament of Brigada, also June 20th, Red Army Fraction, and so, where I never took part of because I'm against militant organizations. So at one stage, I just had enough. I said, I don't take that shit any longer. It's my life. I take my decisions, and from here, I will start over new again. In 1968, I left Germany for, no, not far, for the Netherlands. And in 1968, why I was, first of all, I intended to leave every Germanness behind me and enroll in Prague at the Film and Theatre Academy. I thought that's a good idea. That was in the summer of '68. Some remember what that was. I took a car, drove towards the Czech border, and there were strange people like aliens. And I said, "Niet." It was the time of the Russian invasion, so no way to get to Prague to the Film and Theatre Academy. So I was, and then I was disappointed. I didn't know where to go else. So I was hanging out there for about 3 days, and eventually got sort of friendly with some of the Russian soldiers, so we shared one car, of course. And at one stage, about 3 days hanging out close to the border, at the border, I found a newspaper just fluttering around. It was not exactly the newspaper from the day, but a newspaper from the day before or 2 days before. It just was going with the wind going on. And then I opened that newspaper, and there was a double page about the provos in Amsterdam. The term provo comes from provocation. The provos in Amsterdam, unlike the German and the Italian terrorists, they were, and I like to stress what they were constructive anarchists. It's a different story. And I was attracted to them, saying, yes. So I went from the Czech border up to Amsterdam, where I didn't know anybody, I had no place, I had no money, I had nothing. But the provost in Amsterdam was actually the magnate for me to find a solution how to go on. Coming to Amsterdam, I learned about the provost. They were rioting daily against the police because of their massive demonstrations, which the police or the authorities didn't like. They wanted to put it down. And I learned about the provost. They had a few goals, aims for what they were rioting. First of all, car-free city center. The alternative was they would install 150 white painted bikes without blocks. That means everyone, the city center now is rubbish. So they would install these bikes and everyone could grab a bike, drive wherever he or she wanted to go, leave it, somebody else would take it, and I would cycle the whole day and all night around. Great plan. The next thing was they wanted to install more parks and green spaces and green places in Amsterdam. Also good. You know, I passed today the park here from the hotel to here. It's packed with people who enjoy it tremendously. Green. Third thing is they wanted to install children farms. That means small farm-like places with donkeys and with sheep and with goose and with chicken and with pigs, so that children could get an idea about living chicken, living pigs, living things. Because now many children know chicken and pigs only from the supermarket and from the life. So that was a great intention. And I said, yes, I go for it. So I joined it for a while, I documented all the actions. And at one stage, I was writing aphorisms at the time. That means it's a form of poetry. I was writing aphorisms, typing them away on an old-fashioned typewriter. And at one stage, I discovered a Polaroid camera. Wow. I have been dealing with photography before, but lately, not anymore. All my intentions and my muse went into writing algorithms. When I discovered the Polaroid camera, it was a revelation, because it just shortcutted the moment of taking a photograph, then wait till the film is full, process it, wait for the prints, pick up the prints, and then a week or 2 months, sometimes a month later, you see your prints. That has nothing anymore to do with the moment of taking photograph. The moment of taking photograph is it. Processing is a different. So I used the Polaroid, walked around in Amsterdam and took photos of the city of Amsterdam. At one stage I discovered that Polaroid International headquarters were in Amsterdam. And I went there with my Polaroid photographs, and I met 3 people. One was the international worldwide art director, another was the marketing director, and the advertisement director. I met them, 2 were Dutch, 1 was German. So I showed them this and this, and they said, oh nice, nice. That was it. But I went on. I went on another week, went back again, keep penetrating them, and showed them more photographs, any color, any black and white. And then at one stage they said, well, that's interesting. Actually, you could work for us. What did you want? You could become a Polaroid consultant photographer. But then we sent you to London, finish Amsterdam, Paris, Rome, and New York. And you make city portraits with our cameras in place. And I jumped in the air. And I got about, I think at the time, 10,000 guilders, which was about 5,000 euros, which was fortunate. And traveling expenses, hotels, and I got cameras and films as much as I wanted. And because I had cameras and the films as much as I wanted, at one stage, once this was concluded, there was a book published by Polaroid, given as equivalent to the Polaroid photo dealers around the world, and so then I pointed the camera to myself with the question, who am I? It's an easy question, but not easy to answer. Then I took Polaroid photographs of myself in all moments and situations, even as drag, as queer, as transvestite, tattooing, piercing, self-injury, self-mutilation, and all of this stuff. In a way, I thought, photography is not enough to find out who you are, because photography only can remain on the surface of things, either the human body or an object. So I cutted myself off like last night, but I'm not anymore busy with the same question. And then I took the Polaroid photographs in the typewriter and kept writing aphorisms with the typewriter over the Polaroid photographs. I think there are some of the images in the show. And, but slowly on, the image took it over. Why? Because writing letters is rational, intellectual. Image is more emotional. And I discovered that I'm a very emotional person. Till today. You can ask my wife if you want to. So I went for Polaroid, and I was taking about 5 years self-portraits. I call them auto-Polaroids of myself. Always with the same question, trying to find out my identity, and who am I, etc., etc. Because I was orphaned at the age of 15, there was no parents, no brothers, sisters, grandparents who could tell me something about my ancestors, etc. So the question about who am I still pending. Aside, I wasn't baptized, I changed my nationality, and all this kind of thing. So I was juggling with the whole notion of identity.
Can I interrupt you for a second? Actually, you really quite nicely led the whole Polaroid story. And actually also the title of the exhibition, I Other, implies actually not just yourself, but also your relation to the others. And also within the exhibition, when we were preparing, actually everything was done with a in a dialogue between three of us. There is a part of exhibition where you vanish from the image, and other people actually become the main figures of the image, and a lot of them, they are marginalized groups of society. And I always, it rose in my mind when we were preparing the show, like two sentences. One was when Chrisia said, you know, in the first place, Ulai's work is very, very ethical. And on the other hand, what rings in my mind is when you were telling the story that Polaroid actually was a possibility to break the ice with the person you're taking photos. So maybe could you tell a little bit about this relation, how the, let's say, technical aspect of Polaroid affected the relation you had with people? Sure.
Well, one more time, coming back to the title, I Other. I lent the title from a title by Arturo Rimbaud, Gérard. And I mean, Arturo Rimbaud's world literature, we all know that Gérard was always fascinating to me. Two things, I Other. One is I, who try to be somebody else in these Polaroid sequences with black and all these kind of things. But the other thing is, of course, there is no self without other. There is no I without other. There is no other without I. So that exceeds actually the core question about myself, I, other. That went also to others. And Teos is right. I had a great ambition to engage and involve and be with marginals, being at homeless, being at mental disease, being at Afro-Americans, and you know, all that kind of things. What I usually did when I got together with these marginalized groups, of course I had a Polaroid camera with me always. It was a permanent kind of a tool in my pocket. I first took a photo of the other. And of course many of these kind of people that didn't know about Polaroid. And then I give the first photograph always to them. And some were stunned because I usually gave it when it was not fully developed. So it's just a white sheet of paper and slowly something is coming up, which is sort of magic. And once they would recognize themselves, they look at it and say, it's yours. Now this changed the whole relation between photographer and the photographer. Now usually photographers, they point the camera at you, and take it in the box and disappear. This is different. You point a camera at somebody and the first thing you do, you make a gift. And in exchange, they were much more ready and willing to collaborate. That was a beautiful thing about Polaroid. And I see Polaroid actually as an exchange means. I can do that, sure. Thank you. So Polaroid was a very welcome thing to make others trust in me and making themselves open to or willing to pose for me. Me together or alone. That's actually answering the question.
Just additionally, something that always follows me in years of our collaboration is the sentence that, I mean, can be applied to also later work that we will mention, but the sentence, aesthetics without ethics is cosmetics. And I believe it's kind of your motto in your life as well. I mean, the ethical. But how, when did you kind of came to this idea of, let's say, the role of ethics within the work? Because you already in the beginning you kind of rejected the aesthetic norms. You call yourself that you are fond of like an anti-aesthetic, let's say, line?
Well, I'm from the anti-aesthetic generation, mid-60s and 70s. And but when I shouted this credo about aesthetics without ethics are cosmetics, many people disliked it, especially the established art world. And I mean it, but it is not just it's not just like a flirt of mine that I flirt with the idea about ethics. It is more, this became more a principle and a philosophy that I will not lose or let go for the sake of aesthetics. I will not let go my responsibility part about balancing possible aesthetics or anti-aesthetics with ethics, and till today. And as I said, it became a principle and philosophy. And this makes it not much more comfortable for, well, the common art market, let's say. But I'm that kind of guy, and I did it since a long time ago, and I still do it. And I'm very happy with it, and I don't regret anything about it. And maybe today, I mean, I shouted this credo about aesthetics without ethics like cosmetics about, what, 25, 30 years ago. And actually, today, I have more motivation to say it or shout it one more time. And I hold on to it. You know, you sooner or later will see what I mean by it, if you haven't seen it already.
Okay, so we come to other ethical questions in your words. And I think we'd be interested to say a few words about the last action that you did before you started to work with Marina Abramowich. So it was the Berlin action, the ones you didn't see the show yet, where there is a criminal touch to art, which is, yeah, definitely talking about something that you were explaining at the beginning, the society didn't agree with, which direction it took, the German society. And again, the group which was living on the margins, so the Gastarbeiters, which I'm sure you all know, that were building Germany in 50s and 60s, but then they were forgotten.
Well, the foreign workers who were attracted to Germany around the 50s and early 60s, they were actually attracted to clear up the dirt. Nice. Amongst them, of course, Italians, Greek, and many Turks. And the Turks usually, for some reasons, they drove to Berlin. And Berlin at one stage had quite a ghetto. And it is literally, it was literally a ghetto in Berlin. Today Berlin is, of course, as we know, the largest Turkish enclave outside Turkey. And they're doing very well, I must say. But at the time in 1976, you know, there were institutions like, you know, the DAAD, the German
academic exchange.
Yeah, the academic exchange, foreign students or artists to Berlin. And they had studios in Berlin-Kreuzberg, where actually the Turkish ghettos were at the time. And well, you know, in Berlin, as it was right inside the wall, Berlin was a very unpleasant place, and many institutions, amongst them the DAAD, did a lot of effort to keep that half a city in foreign territory, in enemy territory alive. So when I came to Berlin, I had several problems. I had a problem with the institutionalization of art. Then I went to the new National Gallery. The amazing, still my favorite building in Berlin is this Sanaro. And I went there and aspected modern art. Either a modernist or modern art, whatever, but then in the basement they had a gallery exclusively for German romantics, Biedermeier, about middle of the 19th century. And there was this one particular painting, which is actually called The Poor Poet, painted by Karl Spies in 1836. It's a very romantic, miserable scene of a poet, poor poet, under a roof. It's leaking through the roof. He lies in the bed. He has an umbrella over it, and he is writing manuscripts away. And there is an oven. There are piles of manuscripts just written in front of the oven to dry. And the manuscripts go in the book, of course, go in the oven, drying his boots, and it's a small painting like this. But eventually, also for me, having been going to school in Germany, it became a sort of a German identity icon. And it was one of Hitler's favorite paintings. I didn't expect it there. So I found the corpus delictum for what I actually tried to do. I wanted to create a tremendous irritation between the Academy of Art, between the new National Gallery, Kunsthaus Britannien, these are three cultural institutions, and but to get something going, you need a means. It's like a strike. If you want to strike, you better have the right means to do so, otherwise it's nonsense, senseless. So what I did, first I made a reproduction of the painting and blocked the main entrance to the Academy of Art in Berlin. It was about 2.5 by 2 meters, so you couldn't come in or out. Same motif, the painting. Then I went next, sorry. Next I went to the new National Gallery. I had studied about 8 to 10 days the situation here, and I knew the moment you touch the painting that the alarm goes off, inside and outside. And the main entrance is a revolving door, they will block. So you need to cut 2 wires where the painting was hung on, and simultaneously there were of course contacts for the alarm. I had to run through this gallery, through the down hall, upstairs, through this very big hall, to the exit. And I know the emergency exit is not locked. It's just sealed by the fire brigade. I knew it. So I cut the wires, I grabbed the painting, I got up, I just about made it, and went to the emergency exit out. My truck, in which Marina we were living for 5 years later on, was parked there with running engine because my battery was flat. And I was praying, that the engine is still going, it was going. And then I drove direction Berlin-Kreuzberg. And about at the periphery of Berlin-Kreuzberg, I left the car, parked the car, black, ugly vehicle, which I bought second-hand via an auction from the French police. And so it's very obvious, and I know that taxi drivers in Berlin at the time, they love to listen to the police radio. And if they would signalize, if the police would signalize my car, they would walk away. They walked away with the police. So I left the car behind and started running, continuing to Berlin-Kreuzberg and to the quarters of a Turkish foreign working family. I have been, prior to the action, it was on the 12th of December 1976, on a Sunday. I have been visiting the Turkish family and said, we are shooting a documentary film. Would you please allow that we just come up to your place, we hang a painting on the wall, and we shoot it, and that's it. They said, sure. So eventually I made a list of painting. I went up the 2nd floor to the Turkish family, and I didn't have a hammer and nail in the pocket. So they had another painting, like a Baroque, whatever. So I hang it off and use the same nail to hang the painting on the wall. And that was, of course, a tremendous irritation. Prior to the action on Saturday, I had sent to 12 media a letter with the intention of the action and what I want to do and how I'm going to do it, etc., etc. But knowing that on Sunday they were not printing, at least this time not, that it only can come on Monday. And after the action, I called the police, I called the director of the new National Gallery and said, I did it, I take all, I'm responsible and take all consequences. The took about an hour before the director with a police and civil came. Because before there were these anti-terror trucks that surrounded the whole block. And when that was done, there was this Mercedes coming with the director, Professor Dieter Homisch, and a policeman in civilian. So I got in the car, they brought me to the New National Gallery via the personal entrance, because they said, kids, not via the main entrance. People will launch the room. So we went there and I said, take the consequences. I went to prison for 24 hours. Germany has a law. They can keep you without any reason 24 hours before you get to a civilian judge, and they decides about the further consequences. And so after 24 hours, I could make one telephone call. So I called the man who was supporting the action, Mike Steiner Video Gallery at the time. And he had promised me prior that he would arrange a lawyer for me. So I went to court. There was just a prosecutor and a young lawyer. And it was me and 2 police guards. And the prosecutor started reading verdicts. Like, I saw myself already a lifelong in prison. Because prosecutors are very tough. And then the judge didn't say anything. And at one stage, a door opened in the back. I didn't turn around. And somebody who opened the door screamed, "Hans!" And the judge screamed, "Otto!" They were study friends. So my lawyer and my judge, they were study friends, and I was out in my time. 3 months later was a real court case, and I got 36 days sentence in prison, or 3,600 dinars fine. Of course, I didn't get 3,600 dinars. I didn't go to court. I didn't pay, and 1 year later, I got busted at the airport in New York.
And now actually the talk we had now was focusing, let's say, mostly to photography. But I would like to maybe make a little transition to performance, which is also an important part of your work. But as an introduction, maybe already try to point out the elements within photography that already were performative. I mean, you talk about the Polaroids as a performative photography, the photogram that you did, or like for exhibition in Mestna or in the 70s, it also has this performative element, you know, already with public. And on the other hand, the culmination in photo thought, where you symbolically kill the photography, and you were constantly pushing the medium of photography, which is, let's say, by our notion, static, but you were constantly pushing these mediums. And then, again, one of your sentences, body is a medium par excellence. Can you speak a little about this transition from, let's say, static medium that you already tried to move it, and how everything culminated in the performance?
Well, you know, as I mentioned before, I was about 4 to 5 years taking about exclusively Polaroid photographs. And then I got into performance. I did my first performance, I believe, in '74. Then the big change, the big turn started in '76 when I met with Marina Abramowitsch. I was 75 and 75. But instead from '76 on we started working together. That was not an easy thing to do, because Marina was at the time already a very powerful, very strong single artist, and I did my stuff as a single artist, and to fuse 2 eccentric, stubborn artists, you know, it's not an easy task. And it took quite some intensive time before we established an agreement, how and why and what. Because there are 2 big egos involved, and how you deal with this. You can't take an aspirin to solve the problem. just before this happened, the collaborative works, which were called relation works, I had the urge to finish all my analog photographic ambitions and works. I created a work called Photo Death, for which I had 9 images of a person disappearing slowly in landscape, and I had enlargements about 1.20 m by 80 centimeters, and they were hanged over 3 walls in this alternative space in Amsterdam called the Upper. There were 3, there were 3, there were 3, and there were a light which did not harm the photographs. It's like a light photograph through the darkness, it's a yellow-green light. You have spatial orientation, and it doesn't destroy anything or harm anything with the photograph. When the audience came in, we closed the door and we shut on the halogen lights, the typical, the strong gallery lights. And the images disappeared in 50 seconds to black surfaces. You could see it very well, they were perfectly developed process. You could see the image. It was, to begin with, it was a legitimate photographic exhibition. But then in 15 seconds they all would disappear to black surfaces because they were not fixed. They were only processed. So that was called photo death. There was a second part, but I don't go into this, it was too far. And from then, after I did the Berlin action, the demonstrative, social critical action, and then I started working together with Marina. Performance was the main focus, because, as I said before, photography, I have been experimenting a lot with analog photography, but it wasn't the ultimate step to do. And the ultimate step to do was entering from photography into performance, because we did understand at the time that the body is the medium for essence. This is the most important confrontational, realistic, direct, social, or asocial, whatever you like, medium we have available. I managed to do all the documentary photographs from the performances, also the videos, because I had the talent. And then after our collaboration came to an end, there was a big vacuum. It's like you expect. I mean, our collaboration was like symbiotic. There is love, there is togetherness, there is challenging each other tremendously with that kind of work. Under the skin it is symbiotic without doubt. And when that falls apart, you experience a small death within yourself. It's not easy to get out of this, how you feel the gap, how you feel the vacuum. On Marina's side the same, she is not immune of course, neither am I. So we had a hard time. And then slowly we decided we use certain means to continue. Marina on her side has been much success, as we know. Me on my side, I do not regret anything. I'm totally content with what I did. She is content with what she did. I know that neither, because we talked each other long ago. And then something was missing in our whole photographic approach. And that comes from the term performative photography, or more so, it relates actually to a French film critic's essay called The Ontological in the Photographic Image. And when I read that it was André Bazin, he was actually the film critic for the period cinema, nouvelle vague or cinema noir. And he mainly wrote about film, cinema, with exception of one essay, The Ontological in the Photographic Image. And that actually gave me a new perspective, how to deal with photography, how to engage my body, and even performing with the sake, for the sake of photography in front of the audience. That are the photographs I made. One of the photographs is in the exhibition, which I messed up yesterday again. And, but more so, you see, I had a Polaroid history. And Polaroid, Dr. Land was a very playful scientist actually. He had invented many different cameras, and one of the cameras he had invented is the museum-sized camera, which is, was installed in the Museum of Fine Arts in Boston, USA. It's a huge studio, and one head wall is a black box about 4 meters long, 3 meters wide, 4 meters high, with a lens in it. And this is old-fashioned Polaroid peeling technique that you all know from peeling out of the handheld camera. And this camera would make in 90 seconds full-color images of the size 2.40 meters by 1 meter tall. There were 2 technicians working inside the camera, dressed in black with infrared spectacles in order to see something and operate the techniques. And this was unbelievable. Meanwhile, there was another camera, the 24-inch camera with about 72 by 55 centimeter, which is a movable camera. It's extremely heavy, it's 100 kilos, and I use that too for life-size portraits. But the other camera would picture people in life-size in 90 seconds. And because Polaroid is always a contract principle, means the negative is as big as the positive. When it is peeled, it has no grain. So the images are immaculate. I think these large-size Polaroid images were, during the whole history of more than 200 years of photographic history, the Rolls Royce of photography. Unfortunately, there was not enough interest, and it's in the meanwhile dismantled. And I have no access, nobody has access anymore to it, because the whole thing is in bits and pieces. Interesting is the lens in it had no f-stop, had no shutter. It was a lens from a U-2 spy plane, which he got from the NASA and so on. And that was a perfect lens to match the size of the camera. So performative photography, the ontological in the photographic image, that from after my recovery from the break of the 2 of us has given me complete and new injection of engagement in game photography.
Sure, yeah.
Maybe just another element, maybe to conclude the talk, and then we give the floor to the public. Just regarding the performance, actually, I was thinking a lot when talking with Alenka, and you had 3 principles with Marina when you were working for performance. But I'm referring to no rehearsal, no repetition, and no predicted end. And I would just like to know how did it come to that? Was it like natural that you came to that, or it was, let's say, like some strategic agenda about it?
Well, coming natural to something like this, it's not, maybe not really in our nature, but it is a conceptual thing, of course. I mean, everything in art is conceptual, even going back to cave painting. But you know, we made no money. When we did performance at the time, especially in the period between 76 and 80, that were the hardcore performances for most. We got invited to do a performance, I don't know, Bologna or Cologne or anywhere, and we got maybe 150 D-mark, which is 75 euro. And we had no chance because we wanted to do this. The consequence was we had to alter our existential needs. No fixed living place, no rent, no taxes, no this, no this. So instead I got this truck, and we were living for 5 years in this truck. We had at the time no internet, no mobile phone and things like this. So we had the alternative art space in Amsterdam. The Apple was our correspondence address, and that was communicated via media. And whenever there was the idea or the invitation for us doing performance, there would either cable send a telegram or a letter or something to the Apple or call the Apple and say, well, there is a performance festival. And you know, from this existential, chosen, accepted existential circumstances, we came actually to combine the idea of making writing a manifesto about our life and our work. And actually, the manifesto was called Art Vital, meaning actually referring to life like art rather than art like art. Art Vital, permanent movement, no fixed living place, local contact. Then when it comes to performance, no rehearsal, no repetition, no predicted end. And something which was not written, but it was an agreement, like a silent agreement between the two of us that said, whenever one or the other can't go on, she or he stops, and the other can go on or not. That was open-ended. But also, of course, when we did the like self-mutilating performances or the painful-looking performances, we say that was the unwritten agreement. Whenever one or the other gets in problems, meaning pain or inability, we stop at once to avoid expressing any pathos. Because all the performances were not about pain. Never. But of course, it was very uncomfortable, I must admit, for the audience. But some people were fainting during the performance. But interesting, psychologically interesting is, you do performance in a you know, you have a given space, or you find a space. You have a date, you have a time for which the performance is usually very insignificant announced. And then during these days, there were maybe between 20 and 30, the most 40, maybe sometimes 50 people watching the performance. And as I said, some of the performances were for the onlooker, the spectator, as you call it, very uncomfortable. But the interesting thing is, nobody tried to stop it, and nobody walked out. So that gives a very particular social psychological pattern to the relation of then audience and performer. And I found that very interesting, and later on I like to play with this phenomena, psychological phenomena. And yeah, so we were tough to ourselves. We demanded really tough conditions of ourselves. The performances were really very much reduced. I mean, ideas are as sand grains on the beach, but I am very much reductionist, so you strip it and strip it and strip it and strip it to the bone, and then you do something like theater in the evening or something like this. Yeah, okay, that was the manifesto. I can give you one, for last, before you have, I give you 1.5 minute time to prepare your questions, okay? We did in Graz, in Austria, a performance called Incision, and for which I was nude. I found a figure-thick caoutchouc rubber rope that was fixed on the wall about 5 meters wide. I was standing behind it, and the idea was that I extend towards the front, towards the audience, as far as the elasticity permits. And at the maximum extension of me, Marina was staying static, motionless, passive, inactive. So I was, extending, the catapult back with my back to the wall, extending, and the rubber was so strong it would slip me back on my feet against the wall, and over and over and over. So eventually the audience sympathized more with me as the actor. Did not sympathize with Abramowich, who was completely passive. At one stage, one person, having been part of the audience, jumped from the audience in a perfect karate jump against Marina, and she flew 3-4 meters back. The man went immediately out, left the space. Not back to the audience, left the space. And the audience were so loaded and so angry. Marina got up and went back to the same place and stood again passive there. I continued with my thing. But the perception, the anticipation of the audience had changed dramatically. The man, the jumper, he was the karate champion of Austria. So nobody knew. And we engaged him because of this psychological twist between performer and audience. And that is one example. There are great other examples, but now maybe we
Yeah, please, if you have any questions. Are you sure you don't have questions?
not all together, please.
Yesterday, before the opening of the exhibition, somebody mentioned that Marina Abramowich is creating myths around some of the works that you did together, and you're destroying some of those myths. For example, the walking on the Great Wall, and then the performance she did in MoMA. We saw that you did something like that much earlier. How would you comment on that?
Well, what do you mean by creating myth?
Actually, I'm sorry, I will interrupt, because what we said that the art history canon is creating myths. Because, you know, art history likes myths, like with boys, with, you know, there's a lot of them that we are stuck with. And it was intention of Teos and me to kind of reveal some facts that would maybe kill the myth.
Yes.
So it's not like Ulay's proposal or idea to do it, but we just wanted to kind of show also the things and works and documents which are not part of the like must-read books about art, but they played an important role in Ulay's.
Well, there is of course something else which has created a myth, and eventually the myth established itself as a legacy. Well, as I said before, when we did performance for a very small audience, like 30 people, 40 people, these people were, so it was very uncomfortable, maybe because it was so uncomfortable and sensational. These people relay their experience very quick, very soon to other people. That means these 40 people interpret the performance to others. The others interpret it again to others. The second generation others, they misinterpret the thing to the fourth generation of others. And the fourth generation others misinterpret the thing to a fifth generation of others. And as it has happened, you know, 40 people have seen it, and millions of people talk about it. That's interesting. So it creates a myth by itself, and I have nothing against myth. As long as the myth is truthful, then I have nothing against it.
I want to ask you, how do you deal with death? Because at a certain point it will come. Do you want to make it special, or you will just die like a normal person?
You know, I do think, and recently I've talked to young people, I just met my 3 children. They're not children anymore, they're together 128 years. It's 3 of them. And we talked about it. And I told them, listen, the most horrific part we have had, being born is about the most horrific you can have. Death is maybe much more fair and gentle. But it depends on how you are prepared. There are many people, of course we all die, and we don't know yet when and why. what circumstances. And many people are not waiting and they reject, fight. That's not a good thing. So you better be prepared. You know, I just simply surrender, and I hope it will be in a good surrounding, in a good environment. Not everybody is able. I definitely, when I was young, I had one principle: I don't want to die in the bed. Eventually, I don't want to die at all, I guess.
Can we ask another question from our family? My husband is always concerned with death. I'm always concerned, I think, about love. So I'm sorry that we're asking you about your feelings, but you are turning your feelings into art. This is what you do. So my question is, with age, maybe the body leaves us slowly, but what happens to love? What is your love now? Was your love before more like a war, and now is it more settled down or more calm, or on the contrary, more passionate? What happens with love?
Well, ask my wife, she's sitting right here.
Where is she?
She's here right here. But she is sort of shy. Actually, she is not shy, but when it is the audience involved, she acts like shy. You know, love is a very complex thing. Love is a very complex thing. I mean, there are several stages of love. There are many different kinds of love. One love is, of course, maybe the first experience about getting hit by love is being the first time in love. This is a very strange feeling. It is foolish, of course, but it works very much so. When you settle for love, then, I mean, there's so many gradations to it. You can love plants, you can love animals, you can love your parents, you can love your shoes, you can love your car. I mean, there's all love, but what you mean, I know I get you right. In my case, well, I had little chance to pay the love of my parents back to my parents. That is unusual. I never got love from my grandparents, brothers or sisters, because I had many. So I'm pretty much a loner in this social, emotional field, which also includes love. At the age of 21, I got married the first time. And that was out of love, but it didn't last long. I got divorced after 3 years. It was when I left Germany and went towards Czechoslovakia, now Czech Republic, and then to Amsterdam. There was nothing what could stop me, not even my wife and my 3-year-old son at the time. You know, at my age now, being 73, love has a different quality than it had all the time before. It's getting more fair, getting more soft, it's getting more reasonable, if you want to use that term for love, reasonability. You know, I think I now have entered the stage of wise love. What's so funny? Wise love. I do think so, and it makes me feel very comfortable. Very comfortable. Ask my wife again.
And speaking about love, I was curious, what advice would you give to the young generation that sometimes goes for the destructive type of love?
What is the last? I'm sorry.
Destructive. The destructive type of love. The type of love that destroys.
You talk about destructiveness of love.
Yeah, destructive love.
Love can be very destructive, of course. Love is a very precious thing. Very, very precious thing. And love is not really asking you what you think about. Love is not, there is no dialogue about love. There's a lot written about love. In early Persian poetry, love is amazing. I think all religions are basically based on the idea of love. Can be interpreted in many ways again. But love can be very destructive, except when you are at young age, finally you are in love, you love somebody, that means already you make your love dependent, you condition your love. That is the thing what can be painful. When you are as a young person in particular, being in love with somebody, that means you share your love and you expect it will be answered from another person. But the moment you do this, you condition love. There is no way around. And then, when it doesn't turn out right, you will be hurt, you feel bad. And then you are warned, or you are hurt, like a burnt child was a fire. So the next time you're a little more careful with whom you give your love, and whom you trust about love. Love is a tricky thing. But what I mentioned before about Marina Abramowich and my case, there is a symbiotic dimension to it, and that symbiotic dimension goes even further than a heartbreaker. Symbiosis is a biochemical phenomenon, and symbiosis also makes you very dependent on the other. And that goes so far that old couples, like traditional living people, then or now, they get once married and they stick together their whole life. That's beautiful. No worries at all. I like them. But I'm not that type, but anyhow. Sometimes these old couples who live together 40, 50, 60 years, and one dies, the other dies soon after. That is a symbiotic dependence. It's phenomenal. So Ivan, I keep you busy.
No. I want to ask, after all these experiments you've done, what do you know about yourself and what do you know about humans?
What do I know after the experiments I have done, what do I know about myself and
about the other humans?
The other humans? Well, I know one thing for sure. We all have two eyes, one nose, one mouth, and two ears. There is not much difference between us. That's what the Dalai Lama likes to say, for example. I have taken myself sometimes as a laboratorium rabbit, and sometimes as a more experienced man who knows what he is doing. Unfortunately, often I know what I'm doing, not all the time, because I don't want to know all the time what I'm doing. The other, I don't know. Last night it was an incredible experience. It was so massive. I never had experienced something like this. Coming to Bulgaria, being unknown, relative unknown, obviously not. And what happened last night was just overwhelming. That means the others, there were 1,249 people, according to the counter, somebody counted. I never have experienced, that's great. But, the energy was so incredibly positive, so positive. And my role, that exceeded actually being an artist and having an exhibition. That exceeded much being, just the artist having an exhibition, etc., etc. That was much more than this. And I think what I found most particular about is that I guess, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that most of the people who have attended yesterday the opening were not art-informed people or people from the art context or art world. One thing. The other thing is that most of the people were young people. And this is something, it was a big compliment to me that there are the audience interested in me or my art, not person in me, but the artist and the exhibition and the work is so. from the not art condition context and many young people. That is my biggest satisfaction, because what is my biggest satisfaction right now is to prolong the red thread of my legacy to young people. This is like, you know, it's like what grandfathers do to their grandchildren. And but it is very fulfilling and very satisfying that there are people interested and you can deliver something. They give you something by their interest and presence, and you give them something back. That is a very beautiful, again, a very beautiful model of gift exchange. Did I answer the question somehow?
Hello, Ulay. I would like to ask you another simple question. What is the future of performance, according to you?
Dear, what's the future?
Performance.
Well, the future comes never. So don't worry about performance. Well, I'll tell you, I mean, I don't know I can answer this. Thought I'm still like to perform once in a while. The future of performance is to find a core meaning of societies today. And in that core meaning, what you express with performance, they must find themselves. That means, you know, the model, the old model, Marina and me, a man and a woman. And what we did was actually nothing else but exaggerating the traumatic fears of relation, male-female relation. That can be male-male or female-female relation too. And that's why so many people identify themselves with and found themselves in. But I think today there may be more reasons and more flesh, intellectual, emotional, artistic flesh than in this time that you can find in order to do something what appears to the people. It can be critical, it can be uncomfortable, it can be sweet, it can be anything. I would not go for sweet necessarily, because it should be, you know, if it is too easy acceptable, it will be not being carried out. It doesn't have to be extremely shocking either, but the shocking is doing work. The daily performances of politicians and media freaks and television, all that kind of thing. You know? I mean, there's performance all the time going on. Sterilized or stylish or whatever. I don't take political performance anymore for serious because they're ridiculous. But there is, you know, I think if you come to the core of what people need to see and what people are willing to identify with, if you can pack that in your performance, then you have a good chance to be successful.
Thank you very much.
Pleasure.
Okay, maybe this positive thought we take as a last thought to have a nice continuation of the evening. And yeah, I would like to again thank everyone for coming. And yeah. Ivan has another announcement.
So there is a few books which има няколко книги, които са донесли отвън. Каталог, който сме продуцирали ние, само вчера и днес струва по 5 лева, тук мога да намерите безплатно в Рибъка Макхол. А в същото време вече открита третия доза, която правим вчера днес, която е на горната поляк в галерия One Night Stand. Те, че ако искате, тук може да заповядате. Okay, and I would like to mention that Ivan Budov and Erdana Budova, it was her, their idea to come here and to bring Uwe Ulay here and all those great discussions. Actually, I never had such an and touching conversation or communication. So it's really great. It's even a performance which is honorable part of your artistic life. Thanks a lot for coming.
And
maybe write with Z.
Yes. Cheers. The right. Cheers. Cheers.